Hey there. Tonight we're stepping back into a time that smelled worse. The Middle Ages weren't romantic. Not really. No matter what the paintings show or what the fairy tales told you. It wasn't all castles and candlelight. It was chamber pots, drafty walls, and the daily struggle to find even a sliver of space to call your own. Tonight, you'll live it. No toilets, no heat, no privacy. Not for an hour, not for a weekend getaway in a stone inn with rustic charm, but as someone born into it. A peasant, maybe a servant, maybe just unlucky. Either way, your comforts are gone. You'll wake in shared beds, wash in freezing water, squat over pits with no doors, and sleep shoulder to shoulder with strangers. You'll feel the wind through the cracks in your walls, hear everything, smell everything. You'll experience the things we've forgotten to appreciate, like warmth, solitude, soap. So, if this kind of slow, immersive storytelling helps you drift off, or helps you feel strangely grateful for your indoor plumbing, go ahead and like the video. Maybe even subscribe, and drop a comment. Tell me what time it is where you're listening from. It's comforting to know we're all settling down together, scattered across the world. Now take a breath, pull the blanket a little higher, and imagine a world where blankets weren't even a given. Your first night in the Middle Ages starts now. Sharing a straw mattress with strangers, you wake up before the sun, not because of some noble work ethic, not because you're rested, but because someone next to you just rolled over and put an elbow in your ribs. The straw mattress creaks beneath you, not in protest, but in resignation. It's thin, flat. You're basically sleeping on the floor, and you're not alone. There are 6 of you, maybe 7, hard to say in the dark, all pressed shoulder to shoulder on a single mat stuffed with old straw, some of it mouldy, most of it flattened by years of bodies just like yours. You can smell the damp earth beneath the wooden slats of the floor. You can feel the breath of the person behind you, warm, wet, too close. You try not to move too much. You don't want to wake the others, but your hip hurts. Your neck's stiff. Something, maybe a bit of root or a rock, has worked its way through the straw and is poking into your spine. You shift anyway. It's loud. The mattress sighs. Someone coughs. A foot brushes yours, cold and calloused. You hope it's a foot. There's no such thing as personal space here. You've never slept alone, not once in your life. Beds aren't for individuals, they're for families, for survival. You share body heat, you share fleas, you share dreams and snores and the unwashed smell of someone who worked too late and washed too little. It's winter now. You're lucky. The closeness is a mercy, the only warmth you have. The fire went out hours ago, and the wind leaks through every crack in the wall like a thief. You pull the coarse wool blanket higher. It doesn't help much, but it's what you have. The straw crinkles under your shoulder. Someone mutters in their sleep. You close your eyes again, not to rest, but because there's nowhere else to go. This is what night means for you. Not rest, just waiting. Waiting for morning, for chores, for food, for a reason to stretch your limbs and forget that your dreams were interrupted again by a cough or a knee, or the sound of a rat scrambling somewhere in the corner. You never thought you'd miss silence, but now, silence sounds like the most luxurious thing you've never had. The morning chill that never leaves. The first thing you notice when you wake up is that you never really got warm, not fully. Not the way warmth wraps you now, in this century, under thick blankets and behind sealed windows. No, here in the Middle Ages, warmth is something that happens to other people. Briefly. If they're lucky, you sit up. The blanket falls away and the air cuts through your shirt like a blade. Not a dramatic, biting cold, but a creeping, damp sort of chill that wraps around your knees and curls down your spine. Your breath fogs the air. It's still dark, still early. The fire in the hearth burned out in the night, leaving only grey powder and the faint smell of charred wood. There's no kindling left and the coals are cold. You'd need to fetch more wood from outside, but not yet. Not until your toes stop feeling like stones. You put your feet on the ground. The boards are wet, not soaked but dew-slick, like the house itself has been sweating in the dark. You grab your boots, still damp from the day before, and try not to gag as your toes slide into something that never fully dried. There is no hot water. There is no central heating. There's just a room full of sleeping bodies, breath curling upward, and the quiet creak of your own joints as you try to stretch the stiffness from your back. You rub your hands together, blow into your palms. It doesn't help much. Cold in this world is something you carry. You dress in layers, but they're never quite enough. Wool, linen, whatever you have. But it's always worn thin, always patched, always a little too short at the sleeves. And still, you move. Because if you don't, you'll never feel your fingers again. Out into the yard, into the frost. A splash of water from a bucket that's almost frozen through. You splash it on your face like a punishment. Your skin contracts. Your breath shudders. And you begin your day the way you always do. Shivering, but alive. The pit toilet everyone shared. You've been holding it since last night. Not because you're modest, not because you were busy, but because going to the toilet in the Middle Ages isn't simple. It's not private, and it's definitely not clean. You step outside into the pale, damp morning. The air is thick with fog and the sharp stink of livestock. But beneath that, faint and lingering, is a deeper smell, sour and rotting. It leads you to the latrine. It's a pit, dug just outside the edge of the yard. Some are built into little wooden huts, but this one, it's just an open hole with a few flat stones around the rim. No roof, no walls, no door. Nothing but a cold wind and the sky. There's a board to squat over, but it's cracked down the centre. You step carefully. Your boots sink into the damp earth. Flies scatter as you approach. You keep your mouth shut, not out of politeness, just instinct. The stench is powerful, not just human waste, but time. This pit's been here for years, maybe decades, maybe generations. You crouch. The cold seeps into your legs. You can hear distant noises, others waking up, roosters calling, someone chopping wood. But here, it's quiet. Too quiet. You hurry. There's no paper, no cloth. Just a piece of moss, maybe, if someone was kind enough to leave one. You do your best. You do what everyone does. Finish quickly, and try not to look down. You stand. Stretch. The chill lingers on your skin. The shame too, even though everyone does it. Every day. Out here, in the open, under the same sky where people pray and children laugh. You think about how strange it is, how something so necessary, so human, could still feel like something you want to disappear while doing. But there is no disappearing here, only returning, and hoping the pit doesn't overflow during the next rain. You step away, back to the yard, back to the chores, back to pretending that the latrine is just another part of life you've already gotten used to, even though you haven't, even though you never will. Washing with water that hurts. You don't bathe every day. No one does. Not here. Not now. Soap is rare. Hot water even rarer. But dirt? Dirt is constant. You wear it like a second skin. It creeps into your fingernails, cakes behind your ears, settles in the creases of your elbows and the folds of your clothes. And this morning, you're due for a wash. You fetch the basin, wooden, cracked and cold, and carry it to the well. The rope creaks as you lower the bucket, your hands already stinging from the chill in the air. When you haul the water up, it sloshes against your legs, icy and unapologetic. You pour it into the basin. Steam doesn't rise. There is no steam. Just the clear, colourless certainty that this is going to hurt. You crouch beside it, strip down enough to get to skin. Your breath trembles as your fingers dip into the surface. You splash it over your arms first, then your chest, then your face. The shock makes you grunt. Your skin tightens instantly. It feels like the water is slicing through you, like winter itself has been poured into a bowl and told to clean you. You scrub with a rag. Not soap, just cloth, just friction. The same one you use to clean your boots, or the pots, or your own sweat-soaked back. You rub hard, chasing away yesterday's grime with this morning's pain. You flinch, you keep going, because you've seen what happens when people stop washing, when sores bloom and infections settle and lice throw their little festivals in your hair. So you keep washing, even if it makes you shake, even if it makes your teeth knock together like stones in a stream. You dry with your shirt. Not a towel, just whatever's driest. You wring out the rag and dump the water, watching it disappear into the soil like none of this ever happened. And for a few minutes, just a few, you feel almost clean. Not warm, never warm, but clean. And that, here, is a kind of luxury. Sleeping through the noise of others. You don't sleep in silence. You never have. Silence in this world doesn't exist. Not when you live packed into one room with too many bodies and too few walls. Not when sleep means curling up shoulder to shoulder, blanket to blanket, breath to breath. You lie down again as the sun slips behind the trees, but sleep won't come easy, because someone is already snoring, loudly. Another is grinding their teeth, tiny squeaks and cracks like distant rats gnawing wood. Someone across the room coughs, long and wet, and next to you, a child mutters nonsense in their dreams and kicks out suddenly, heel thudding against your leg. You turn over. The straw beneath you rustles like dry paper. The blanket itches. Your elbow brushes someone else's hip. They grunt but don't move. The fire's gone low. In the dark, the noise sharpens. A sniffle, a groan, the endless creak of the bed frame, then the unmistakable sound of someone relieving themselves just outside, too close to the wall. You hear the splash. You hold your breath. You try to drift. But it's hard, because people move. They shift. They mutter. They breathe like bellows and cough like thunder. And no one here has ever heard the word privacy. You used to be embarrassed by the sounds you made at night. Murmurs, farts, the odd word that slipped out when your mind wasn't paying attention. Now, you don't care. Because everyone does it. And there's no space for shame. Just the hope that your body behaves, that your stomach doesn't grumble too loud, that your sweat doesn't stink too strong, that you can find a pocket of quiet, even among the storm of sleep sounds. Eventually exhaustion will win. It always does. You'll fade out not into stillness, but into a kind of surrender, a sleepy tolerance of the human orchestra around you. And when you wake, they'll still be there, snoring, coughing, breathing, just like you. Living without doors, that lock. You close the door behind you, but it doesn't really close. It leans. It slumps into the frame with a soft thud, held in place by gravity and hope. No latch, no knob, just a wooden plank resting on wooden pegs, swollen from rain, warped from years of being shoved and pulled and beaten by wind. It doesn't lock, not really. There's a loop of rope you can tie to a nail, but anyone could undo it. Anyone could lift the whole thing off its hinges if they wanted to. That's just how it is. You try not to think about it, because privacy in the Middle Ages is a luxury reserved for no one. Not you, not the nobleman in the tower, not the monk in the abbey. Doors are more about keeping out wind than keeping out people. You sit inside, cross-legged on the floor. You hear everything outside. Boots crunching gravel, voices passing by, a drunk laughing, a baby wailing, the low, hungry bark of a dog sniffing near the threshold. The fire is low. Your heart beats a little faster every time a step slows outside, when someone lingers, when a hand brushes the wall, because you know they could walk in, and you couldn't stop them. You live in a world where the idea of ownership is fluid. If someone stronger wants what you have, they might just take it. You think about your meager things, a spoon, a blanket, your boots. You tuck them closer. You keep them near while you sleep, not because they're valuable, but because they're yours. You try to rest, but even in the stillness, there's tension, because a door doesn't lock, and neither does anything else. Your thoughts, your sleep, your life. It's all open, vulnerable. You let out a breath. You pull the blanket higher. You whisper a short prayer, not because you're devout, but because it feels like some kind of shield. And then you lie still and wait for morning, eating while being watched. You sit on the edge of a low stool, bowl in hand, spoon hovering over the surface. It's not much, some kind of stew, thin and greyish, full of mushy beans and overcooked greens. A sliver of something chewy that might be meat, but you don't ask. You're too hungry to care. You bring the spoon to your mouth and feel the eyes. They're not hostile, just there, always there. Children mostly, a few younger than you. One old man with shaking hands and a twitch in his lip. The others haven't eaten yet, or they finish too fast to remember the taste, but they all watch you now, as if your food might somehow become theirs just by looking hard enough. You chew slower, not because you want to savor it, but because the moment you finish, the bowl will be empty, and someone will ask if they can lick it. You don't say no. No one does. Not here. Food isn't just scarce, it's visible. Everyone knows what everyone else has. You can't sneak a crust of bread or hide an apple. You share it, or you pay for it with guilt. You shift a little, trying to angle your body between the bowl and the open air. It doesn't help. The baby in the corner begins to cry. A teenage girl licks her lips. Someone coughs. And still, you keep eating. Spoon, swallow, spoon, swallow. Trying not to rush. Trying not to choke. Trying not to let your hands shake from the feeling that every bite is being measured and judged and possibly envied. You finish. There's a bit of liquid left, and before you can even tilt the bowl, a boy appears. Barefoot, dirty-nosed. May I? You hand it over. He drinks the last mouthful with a slurp, then wipes his mouth on his sleeve and vanishes back into the shadows. You're still hungry, but that's normal, and at least now the eyes have moved on to someone else, some other bowl, some other fleeting moment of nourishment. You sit back, wipe your lips, and remember that here, privacy isn't just something you don't have when you sleep or bathe. You don't have it when you eat either. Going to bed, still wet. You did your best to stay dry, but the rain didn't care. It came hard and sudden while you were still out, hauling a basket of kindling and dragging your feet through the thick brown soup that used to be a road. No coat, just wool, which means you're soaked through and through. You close the door behind you, dripping onto the floorboards. No one looks up. They're all wet too. You peel your shirt over your head. It slaps against your skin like a wet rag. Your sleeves stick. Your trousers are heavy with cold water, sagging at the waist, clinging to your legs like weeds. You hang them near the hearth, but the fire is weak. Just a few orange tongues flickering over black logs, not enough heat to chase the damp from your clothes, let alone your bones. You consider staying naked, but it's not safe. Not here, with others pressed in all around you. So you pull on a dry tunic, if you can call it that. It's less wet than the rest. Scratchy, stiff with old sweat and ash, but dry enough to count. You crawl into bed still damp. The mattress, already musty, pulls the wet from your skin. The blanket, shared with two others, is heavy and cold. No one says a word. You're just another body trying not to shiver too loud. You curl into yourself. Your toes throb. Your fingernails ache. Your hair is slick against your scalp. You close your eyes and try to convince yourself that warmth is just a thought. That if you can think warm, breathe warm, remember warmth, it'll come back. It doesn't. You drift into sleep slowly. Not because you're relaxed, but because exhaustion drags you down like water. And in your dreams it's still raining. Or the cold that lived in the walls. You wake up and the cold is already there. Not just around you, but in you. It lives in the walls, in the stone, in the gaps between the boards that were never quite sealed. The wind pushes through them like fingers searching for bare skin. You feel it every time you move, every time you breathe. Your breath fogs the air, inside. That's how you know it's real, not just a chill, not just bad weather, but a kind of permanent guest that never leaves. You could light a fire in the hearth, stoke it till the wood hisses and cracks, but still, the corners of the room would stay cold. Still, your boots would be stiff. Still, your hands would be numb before you ever got them warm. You touch the wall beside your bed. It's damp, cold, like river stone. It feels like it's weeping from the inside, sweating out the night. And even though the fire burned late, it didn't reach this far. Nothing ever does. You pull your blanket closer, but it's more like a suggestion than a shield. Just woven wool with patches and holes that let the cold sneak in anyway. You curl tighter, try to make yourself small, but the cold gets in through your back, your feet, the top of your head. You've known this cold your whole life. It lives in your chest in the mornings, making your first breath feel like swallowing glass. It curls around your fingertips when you hold a spoon. It stiffens your joints when you kneel, when you stand, when you try to walk like someone whose body isn't made of frozen rope. Sometimes it fades in the afternoon. If the sun comes, if the wind settles, if the chores are hard enough to make you sweat. But it never leaves, not completely. It waits, in the walls, in the floor, in your bones, and it always comes back. The smells you couldn't escape. You notice it the second you wake up, not because it's new, but because it never left. The room has a smell. It always has. You just try to forget it. But in the stillness of early morning, when the fire is out and the air isn't moving, it hits you again. A stew of bodies, sweat, damp wool, mildew, ash, mud, smoke, the faint sweetness of something rotten, mixed with something sharp. Maybe urine, maybe old cheese. It settles on your tongue even before your nose. You breathe through your mouth and still it finds you. You sit up. The blanket reeks of wet animal. You wonder how long it's been since it was washed, or if it ever really was. Someone nearby shifts and releases another layer of it, a human one. You pretend not to notice. You step outside. Fresh air doesn't exist. Not really. Outside, there's manure, pigs, chickens, the pit toilet just a few steps down the path, smoke from other hearths curling into the fog, a pile of compost steaming beside a fence post, a bucket of dishwater that never quite made it far enough away. And yet, you keep breathing, because you've learned to live in it, with it, around it. There are herbs hanging near the hearth to try to mask it. Lavender, if someone had a few sprigs to spare. Rosemary, maybe mint in the summer, but none of them win. They just soften the edges. You try to clean yourself, wipe your face, rinse your hands, but everything you touch already smells like something else, and so do you. Your shirt smells like fire and grease. Your hair smells like straw and the oil you rubbed in last week. Your hands, always your hands, smell like the last thing you touched. Onions, a goat, the handle of the broom. You used to mind. Now you just carry it with you, because the Middle Ages don't smell clean. They smell lived in, worked in, survived in. And that's not something you can ever fully wash off. No place to cry alone. You don't mean to cry. It just happens. Quiet at first. A prickling behind your eyes. A tightness in your throat that won't go away. You turn toward the corner, hoping no one sees. But of course, they do. There's no privacy here. You live shoulder to shoulder, breath to breath. Every cough is heard. Every argument. Every muttered prayer, and every tear, no matter how small, is noticed. You curl in on yourself, make your body small, press your hands to your face, not because it helps, but because it hides something. Sort of. Someone nearby glances over, then looks away. They won't ask what's wrong. That's not the way it works. You don't get comfort in words or kindness here. Not really. Comfort is a fire someone lets you sit close to. It's half a crust of bread handed over without explanation. It's silence, when silence is mercy. You bite your sleeve. It's rough and smells like salt and old smoke. The tears come anyway. Maybe it's the hunger, or the cold, or the way your back has hurt for weeks but no one calls it a wound because it isn't bleeding. Maybe it's the hopelessness, that tomorrow will look just like today, that all the work you do vanishes into survival and never becomes anything more. You wipe your eyes with your palm. It leaves a streak on your face, cleaner skin in a line of grime. It makes you feel exposed. You rub your cheeks to even it out. A small child sits beside you. They don't say anything. They just offer you a crust, hard as stone, probably already chewed, but it's something. You take it. You nod. You pretend the crying's done. But the truth is, you'll cry again. Maybe tonight. Maybe next week. Maybe the next time you're alone. And there's no such thing as being alone. Not in a world where even your pain has to be shared. Illness without escape. You feel it before you open your eyes. That heat behind your forehead. The ache in your joints. The dryness in your throat that makes every swallow feel like chewing sand. Your skin is slick with sweat, but your fingers are cold. You're sick, and you know what that means here. There is no medicine waiting on a shelf, no soft bed in another room, no silence, no comfort, just the same straw mattress, the same cold room, the same people lying beside you, some of them coughing too. You try to sit up. Your head throbs. You lie back down. Someone nearby notices, offers you a cup of water. It's warm, not from heat, but from being carried too long in someone's hands. It tastes like wood and metal, but you drink it, because that's all there is. No one stops working because you're ill. There's no space to rest, no permission to disappear. You're still expected to get up, feed the chickens, fetch the water, scrub the pots. Illness is just another layer over the day, like dirt or cold. You carry it with you, and if you can't, then you lie there, shaking, sweating, listening to the world go on without you. Sometimes someone will check if you're still breathing. Sometimes they won't. You hear a baby cry, a spoon clatter into a bowl, a quiet prayer for someone else who didn't wake up. You wonder if it was fever, or coughing, or just life. Your breath rattles. There's no doctor, no diagnosis, just hope. Hope that whatever's inside you will pass like a bad season, that your body will fight and win and carry you back into the noise. And if not, you won't be alone. Because here, even dying is something you do in the same room as everyone else, and the world will carry on, scratching at fleas all night. You tried to fall asleep. You really did. But the itching started again, first at your ankle, then behind your knee, then your side, now your scalp. And once you scratch once, it's over. You're wide awake, clawing at your own skin like it's made of straw. Fleas. You hate them more than the cold, more than hunger, because at least hunger comes and goes. But the fleas, they're always there, always waiting, always hungry. You throw off the blanket, it doesn't help. They're in the straw mattress, in your shirt, in the seams of your trousers and the folds of your sleeves. You can't see them, but you can feel them. Tiny teeth, tiny feet, moving where they don't belong. You scratch until your skin burns. Then you try not to scratch again. You try to breathe, to count, to think of something else. It doesn't work. The bites swell. They scab over, only to be torn open again by your own nails. You've seen people with infections, legs covered in angry red streaks, eyes puffed nearly shut, joints too sore to bend, and all of it from these creatures the size of a grain of sand. You lie back down, but sleep won't come. Every time you think you've settled, another sharp itch jolts you from the edge. You squirm. Someone beside you grumbles. You whisper an apology. You think about fire, about burning all of it, your clothes, the mattress, the whole house, just to feel clean again. But that's a fantasy. There's no escaping them. Not really. Everyone has them. Even nobles. Even monks. You've heard of ladies who sprinkle lavender on their beds, hoping the scent will drive the fleas away. It doesn't. They bite through perfume just like they bite through skin. You curl into a ball, scratch one last time, and accept that tonight, again, you will sleep in pieces, interrupted by 1,000 tiny mouths. And tomorrow, you'll wake up bleeding in places you don't remember touching, waiting in line for bread. You've been standing for what feels like forever. The sky is grey, the air is damp, your feet are cold, but still, you wait. Because today is bread day, and if you're late, there might not be any left. The line snakes around the side of the bakehouse. No one talks much, just the occasional cough, a quiet complaint, someone shuffling forward an inch or two as the door creaks open and another loaf changes hands. You shift your weight from one foot to the other. The mud pulls at your boots. Your stomach growls. You try not to look at the people ahead of you, at the bundles of cloth in their arms, the hollow cheeks, the way some of them glance backward like they expect someone to cut the line. The smell hits you suddenly. Warm, sour, yeasty. The bread is still baking. The scent rises like hope, thick and golden and impossible to ignore. Your mouth fills with saliva. You take a step forward. The man in front of you sneezes into his cloak. You try not to breathe too deep, because you know what happens when you get sick. And you can't afford to be sick. Not now. Not when you're this close to food. You see the door. The baker appears. A wide-shouldered woman with ash on her apron. She squints at each person, weighs out the loaves carefully. No extra, no favours. Not this late in the day. You're next. Your hands are cold. You fumble with the coin, or maybe it's a scrap of cloth to barter, or eggs you carried from home. She eyes your trade, then nods. Hands over a loaf wrapped in a scrap of linen. It's warm, heavy. You cradle it like something sacred, and it is. You take it back through the village, moving quickly, shielding it from the wind and the eyes of others. Everyone knows what a fresh loaf means. You don't want to share, not this time. At home, you tear it open. Steam curls out like breath. The crust is hard, the inside is dense, but it's warm, real, and for once, just for a moment, you're full. You chew slowly and wish it could last forever. No quiet. Even when you're alone, you finally slip away. Not far. Just a walk beyond the barn. Past the hedge where no one can see you. A patch of flattened grass where you can sit with your knees pulled up and your arms wrapped tight around them. You're alone. Or you should be. But it's not quiet. The wind is talking, rattling dry leaves, whistling through cracks in the barn wall. Crows argue above your head, shrill and relentless. From the road there's the low creak of a cartwheel, and someone shouting about a price or a weight or a missing sack. You close your eyes, and the sounds follow you inside. In your head, you still hear yesterday's hammering, the iron striking the anvil, the endless scrape of wood on stone, a dog barking, a baby crying, the low, slow chant of a priest echoing from the chapel walls, too far away to understand, but too near to ignore. You cover your ears. It doesn't help. Your thoughts are just as loud. What still needs doing? What you forgot? What you wish you hadn't said? Whether your sister's cough will get worse? Whether the thatch will hold through next week's storm? Whether you'll get to eat something other than cabbage again this month? You look at the dirt between your shoes. You tell yourself to just be still, but the stillness never really comes, because quiet in this world doesn't mean silence. It just means no one speaking to you directly. Everything else hums, scrapes, breathes. You press your fingers into the soil. Try to ground yourself. Feel the cold earth, the tiny pebbles, the life that grows where no one's looking. You sit like that until your back aches. Then you stand, shake off the grass, walk home, back into the noise that never left. Because even when you're alone, the Middle Ages are always loud. Wearing the same clothes until they fall apart, you don't choose what to wear each morning. There's no wardrobe, no folded stacks, no colours for moods or outfits for occasions. There's just your clothes, the same ones, every day. You pull the tunic over your head. It catches on your shoulder where the fabric's torn. A tear you stitched twice already. The hem is uneven. The cuffs are frayed. The collar doesn't sit flat anymore. It slouches, weary from being pulled and wrung too many times. Your trousers aren't better. A patch on the thigh, another at the knee, one leg shorter than the other. They smell like smoke, wool, and whatever you stepped in yesterday. But they're yours. They keep the worst of the cold off your skin. They carry the shape of your body in every crease. They've been soaked, dried, dragged through mud and ash and rain, and they still somehow hold together. Mostly. You have one other shirt, but it's no better. Just less damp. When you're lucky, you can alternate. When you're not, you wait for the fire to dry one enough to wear. There's no such thing as clean. Not really. Just less dirty. You've forgotten what it feels like to wear something soft, new, unscratched by hay, untouched by soot. You remember once, long ago, watching a traveller pass through wearing dyed fabric, blue, maybe even green. It caught the light like water. You stared too long, got a cuff to the head for it. Not for the likes of us, someone said. And they were right. You wear your life on your back, every stitch a memory, every stain a story, and you'll keep wearing it until the threads give way completely, until the patch needs patching, until someone else's old garment becomes yours, and you start all over again. Watching people die in the same room. You sleep in. It starts with a cough, not yours, someone else's. You hear it before you open your eyes. It's wet, heavy, full of something that doesn't want to leave. You lie still. You know who it is. The old woman near the hearth. She's been getting weaker all week, sleeping longer, eating less, whispering things that don't make sense. People say she's fading. You shift on the straw. Try not to breathe too deep. The room smells different today. Not worse, just heavier, like the air itself knows what's coming. You sit up, and someone beside you nods without speaking. They know too. No one moves to help her. Not really. What could they do? There's no doctor, no cure, no potions or prayers strong enough to fix whatever's inside her. She mutters. Someone places a cloth on her head. Someone else holds a cup to her lips. Most of you just sit, watching, silent, waiting. She's still breathing, but slower now. You go outside for your chores. You chop wood, haul water, feed the hens, and when you come back, she's still there. But she hasn't moved. Her eyes are open. She's gone. No scream, no panic. Just gone. And still in the same place where you'll lie down tonight, in the same room where you'll sleep, in the same air you'll breathe. Her body will stay until someone has time to carry it out. Maybe later, maybe tomorrow. You try not to look, but you do. Because this is life here. People are born beside the fire, and they die beside it too. Sometimes with prayers, sometimes alone, sometimes while others eat their meal just a few steps away. And no matter how many times you see it, it never gets easier, only more familiar. Tonight, you'll pull your blanket higher, turn your face to the wall, and try to dream of something that isn't this. Living a life that never felt like yours. You wake up and it's already decided. The chores you'll do, the place you'll sit, the bowl you'll eat from, even the thoughts you're allowed to say aloud. It's all been shaped for you, long before you were born. You weren't asked. You were born into it. A name that wasn't yours to choose. A patch of land you'll never own. A ceiling made of straw and smoke. A future that looks exactly like yesterday, and the day before that, and every day after, if you're lucky enough to live that long. You tie the same boots, pull the same wool over your back, walk the same dirt path past the same dead tree and the same crooked fence. You nod to the same man with a limp. You avoid the same mutt who snaps at your heels. You step over the same rut in the road that's been there since you were 6. And the whole time, you wonder, was there ever a version of you that didn't end up here? Could you have learned letters, held a coin with your name on it? seen a town with more than one street, felt something like peace, but there's no room for that. Dreams are for stories, stories are for evenings, and evenings are for chores. You eat what you're given, work where you're told, rest only when your body refuses to move anymore, and you do it all again, because that's survival, because to stop, to truly stop, means facing a silence louder than the hunger, louder than the cold, louder than the old woman's breath as it faded near the hearth. Still, sometimes when the fire is low and no one is speaking, you wonder, what would life feel like if it were your own, not borrowed, not inherited, not passed down like a patched tunic that never quite fit, but yours. You stare into the embers. They blink back slowly. You lie down beside strangers, in the body that carries you, in the world that never asked you who you wanted to be. And you sleep, because there's no other choice. Not here, not now, not yet. So, you made it. 18 chapters, 18 glimpses into a life that wasn't yours, but could have been if the wheel of time had turned a little differently. No toilets, no heat, no privacy, no softness, no rest. Just the constant rhythm of surviving, day after day, night after night, in a world that offered so little and asked so much. And yet, people endured. Not because they were stronger, but because they had no other choice. Maybe now, your bed feels warmer, your silence sweeter, your solitude more sacred. Maybe next time you flush a toilet or shut a door behind you or step into a hot shower, you'll think back to this, not as a nightmare, but as a reminder that history isn't distant, it's made of lives, and those lives were once just as real, just as tired, just as human as yours. If this story helped you drift off, or brought you a moment of stillness, go ahead and like the video. Maybe even subscribe, and if you're still awake, leave a comment. Tell me where you're listening from, what time it is. You'd be surprised how many of us are awake together. Now rest. You've survived the Middle Ages, at least for tonight.